Mel Capel, and Shannon Huffman. Those are the D10 I will introduce. The at large after the D10. Okay, just you wanna. Okay.
Oh wow, there are more of you. Hi, my name is Chris Hines. I serve on Denver City Council representing District 10, which, as you probably know, you are not currently in District 10, but you will be as of July 17th. So hopefully you have your ballots. If you don't, they'll be arriving any day now. And the four of us here are the District 10 candidates that you can vote for. So while you will be in District 9 until July 17th, you'll have the opportunity to vote for one of us. I'm the first city council member in Denver's history, local, state, or federal, who uses a wheelchair for mobility. I'm also the first who identifies as a member of the disability community. I think our democracy is stronger when it's representing people, and we've never had disability representation in Denver before. So I'm honored that the people of District 10, as someone who broke the barrier and represents the disability community. I am not a career politician. I grew up in Texas, the only child of a single mom. Dad didn't graduate high school. I was the first in the family. Mom to go to college. I full scholarship to go to SMU, Southern Methodist in Dallas. And as some people say, you buy one get one. Well, I got a full scholarship on get an MBA in finance. So I got they say it's a buy one get one at BOGO. I got a GOBO. So really opportunity to go to SMU and get an education. My mom's a hippie. As kids do, they rebel against their parents. How you rebel against a hippie mom, you go into so I worked in software and then in business for quite some time. For a tech startup that was supposed to be 2 weeks. As startups do, it did not start up. So it's so much easier to play soccer here in Colorado than it is in Texas, particularly the rugged outdoor lifestyle. These beautiful mountains that you have an amazing view to see. That's why I stuck around. So I was in a crash in August of 2008. The Democratic National Convention was here. And it was the Tuesday night of the DNC on a bike. I was in a crash. I was rushed to death. My heart stopped on the operating table. Spoiler alert, I made it. And events to change our focus, the way we live our life and our outlook. And again, hippie mom strike. I started thinking about how I can do better for this planet instead of do better for myself. So legislature, in May of 2018, Governor Hickenlooper signed the Chris Hines Act into law, and I said, well, geez, if they're going to start naming laws, what I could do as an elected official, I don't have to imagine. So is that 5 minutes? And thanks. Everybody
We'll have a meeting great hour.
Oh, my name is Margie Morris, and first of all, thank you to the organizers for tonight and to all of you for being here to be betterers. I am a resident of Golden Triangle, where I live with my husband, Scott. We're going to be celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary this summer. Jeez. 3 grown sons. I'm the shortest in my family right now, and 2 amazing granddaughters. Enjoyed that. I earned a degree in economics from the University of Chicago, and right out, I worked in the department that secured pension funds for hardworking Americans across the country. In fact, one of my first clients was the Colorado Fire and Police Pension Association. People will have questions later. Heart to social impact work and nonprofit. And I worked almost 2 decades with a social service agency that where I was leading and implementing large scale programs in mental health, as well as housing, crisis for women and children fleeing domestic violence, and transitional housing for families. And that made a really big impact. And focused on academic achievement for kids who came from communities that didn't have great access to education and support systems that many of us have. And then I'm serving about 350 kids a year there. and I had the opportunity to go on and lead a statewide organization serving 55,000 kids, which was amazing because I had the chance to make a much bigger impact. But my experience, my leadership experience, and the expertise that I have in many of these programs is why I'm here today. I am in this race for one reason, and that is to solve the homelessness crisis in our city. I would say, so how many of you out there feel that Denver is worse off today than it was 4 years ago? I could not agree more. We are an incredibly well-resourced city with a very generous population. Come in. That has voted time and again for tax increases to improve our city with things like reducing food insecurity, expanding mental health programs, protecting the environment, and building affordable housing. And yet we haven't had the leadership to leverage these resources in a way to provide real progress. I think homelessness is the most important issue facing our city today because it intersects with so many components that are responsible for the health of our city, both the social health of our city and the economic health of our city. And I really think that we can do this. I think it's solvable. I bring the expertise to the table for that. You have a big decision on April 4th, but I hope that you will talk to me afterwards. I am ready to lead. I have a plan to put Denver in a better place in the next 4 years. Thank you.
All right, hello, everyone. My name is Noah Kaplan. I'm running for the city council to represent this district. I'm born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I grew up not far from here in Park Hill. I am a proud graduate of DPS schools and an alum of East High School down the street. Thank you for that. Any angels in the room? We have a few. My parents were public defenders growing up, so I grew up with a strong civic bone, sense that you needed to do what you could to provide for need in your community. You needed to participate, vigilant, to hold your government accountable for providing for that need. You needed to leverage your gifts, and experience, and your sensibility to do something that raised all ships. So I went back to school and I got a degree in English education. I returned to my alma mater of East High School in 2015 to direct their speech and debate program for the last 7 years. And it was one of the great joys of my life to be in the city and to have gone back to. I spent the past 7 years working with over 200 young people and their families each and every year, trying to build a community based in civility and social and civic responsibility, helping young people discover their voices and tell their stories and understand really complex social and societal issues, and helping those young people come up with solutions and be able to articulate those solutions. We built a very interesting community, a very successful community. We brought that program back to being top 20 in the nation. And I'm very proud of the work that I did there. It also gave me a great chance to learn about the very complex set of challenges facing the Denver community, Denver kids and Denver families. Teachers shared in those struggles. Affordability was pushing families out of the community, and I felt that and noticed it, and it's publications covering City Hall, covering homelessness, and specifically covering the fight for accountability and the death of Elijah McClain and other criminal justice reform. It gave me great insight into the failures and lapses of city government, the disconnect between the people who make the rules and who those rules impact. I think your district representative needs to have street level understanding of problems, needs to be curious, needs to be interested in building relationships across this community. And I have worked hard to gain real understanding into what the needs of our diverse community are. And I'm interested in providing for those needs and being a touch point in this city for individuals to come, a resource for them as a district representative, hopefully opening up an office that includes those resources. I have 5 priorities that I want to focus on. The first one is affordability, making sure the families can continue to live and work in this city, that we keep families here, and that they're able to build lives, and their kids are able to return and build lives in the communities they. Homelessness. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this issue to only see it get worse. We need effective championing of the programs that actually help people get back on their feet. We can't warehouse people without resources. We have to be able to champion the types of things that actually lead to self-sufficiency and recovery. And I'm interested in being a part of that solution. I've worked as an outreach worker in encampments for the past 2.5 years, and I've gained an understanding of the complex issues that are facing those communities and the lack of data collection and coordination that would be necessary in order to provide for the needs of those individuals. Public safety and policing. We have to do two things. We have to address the conditions that produce crime. We also need to ensure that we have a law enforcement department, a public safety apparatus that we all trust to call when things go wrong. That means better training, it means better recruitment, it means better community touch points inside of our city, and it means better accountability. We can do that. We need to invest in our institutions. We can't solve problems by taking resources away. We have to make sure that we are modeling the best possible public safety apparatus that this nation has to offer. We think we can do it here. My two other priorities are Denver kids. The city abdicates its responsibility to young people at the schoolhouse door. Let's make sure we're providing for their opportunities after school and before. How are they getting to school? What kinds of experiences are we offering them after school? See an uptick in youth violence, an uptick in hopelessness. We need strong programming, and the city can take more responsibility to do that. As an after-school facilitator and educator, I think I'm just the person to make sure the city does that. My last policy piece, and I'm excited to get to know everybody. I can't get through all of this in 5 minutes, but climate action and sustainable infrastructure. Let's be smart about how we reduce waste. Let's be smart about how we build on energy efficiency, and let's make sure that as we write policy, we're consulting with the right people. I'm in this race for a more unified approach, more coordinated approach, more civility, more collaboration, and we can address these problems. We just need the right leadership. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Hoffman, and I am also a candidate for Denver City Council for District 10. Not going to read to you from this, but I've kind of become notorious for taking my notes to all of these events because I'm nervous. I've never ran for anything in my life. And I think that you push through things that make you scared out of an abundance of love for your community and your neighbors. And that is why I've put myself forward as a candidate. I am a renter, and there are no renters on city council right now, even though we make up more than 50% of our city and 70% of this district, of this new district. And I think that's important because we are experiencing high increases of rent every month. We are experiencing very high levels of eviction, higher numbers in evictions than we have seen pre-pandemic. And so we really need to address our housing crisis desperately. I come from a working class background. My mom is a hairdresser. She did not go to college. My dad's a mailman. I'm the granddaughter of a coal miner who died from black lung when my mother was 13 years old. I have a deep understanding of how what we do to our planet deeply affects people, and especially the most marginalized people among us. I've been an educator for more than 10 years, and I have worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, including working with a local small business, Hope Tank, which is now located, it was on South Broadway, it's now in City Park West. So that was a really enlightening experience working so closely with a small business owner. I currently have been working with a nonprofit in Montbello that is building a multi-million-dollar affordable housing and grocery store project on a former RTD park and ride site. It is 51% owned by the nonprofit, and it's at 30 to 60% AMI for area median income for the units. And I was the project manager on this project, supporting them to get to financial closing. So I do have a deep understanding of how we bring these kinds of projects online. I have been a vocal advocate for tenants' rights. Like I said, I think, this housing crisis that we have in our city is affecting all of us, and most especially people that are experiencing rent increases, experiencing evictions, and living on our streets. I have been an advocate of the ballot initiative, No Eviction Without Representation, which sought to get legal defense for anyone in our city facing eviction. We know this, as well as rental assistance, are two of the most important tools to keep families housed. Keeping families housed was the rallying cry of No Eviction Without Representation, because we know what's best for ourselves when we experience these issues, and we need representatives that will push back against large corporate interests that try to tell us what's best for us when we know. I also worked with a group called Allies to Abolitionists, where we did a large examination of the sweeps of our unhoused neighbors. So we filed more than 60 Colorado open records requests and got thousands of documents back, where we found conservatively that every single time we push unhoused neighbors from block to block, that costs us conservatively as taxpayers $5,000 to $20,000. Our advocacy efforts got the city auditor to put this request on his auditing list, and so that report is going to come out in April. So my belief is that we are wasting our precious resources, our taxpayer dollars, by pushing people around when we could be using them to house people. Which is also why I am a proponent of a social housing model, which would mean that the city becomes the developer. Right now, through low-income housing tax credits, we rely on private developers to build affordable housing units, but they don't build many units at 30% AMI, which is the level that we need for people making $25,000 a year that work at our grocery stores.
30
So
seconds.
thank you. In a social housing developer, the city would build the units. I only talked about housing, also very passionate about co-governance, transit, many other issues. So I hope to be able to talk with you about that at the end. My name is Shannon Hoffman, and it's shannon-hoffman.com for the website. Thanks.
Thank you. We will have the at-large, and they will go in this order. Marty Zimmerman, Jeff Walker, Sarah Parody, Travis Liger, Kim Hoffman, Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Start by telling you a little bit about myself. I'm from Denver. I was born and raised here. I went to not East, but I went to Manual High School. Woo! Yay, good. Okay. Go Bolts. All right. The interesting thing about going to Manual is I picked up the bus to go to Manual in front of George Washington High School. So that sometimes irritates some people from George, so I hope no one's here from them. But no, as a whole, I am definitely a product of Denver Public Schools. I did leave, like many other people, after I finished high school. And I went to college. I went to Syracuse, and then I went to Michigan, where I got a master's in social work focused on nonprofit management. My whole idea and everything I always wanted to do is I wanted to make this world a better place. That was what my DNA has been. That has been my life experiences. And it was really mainly what I want to do. But the question is, how do you make the world a better place? So the first place I thought I would do that is by working in nonprofits. So I started working in nonprofits, and I found that I had a knack for fundraising. So that's what I started doing. I started working for an organization that's kind of like a United Way. We'd raise money, and then we'd allocate it to different organizations in need. And after a couple of years of doing that, what I realized is we're helping some people, but we're not helping enough people. We need to do more. And so I tried going into for-profit, which was a disaster because I wasn't helping people. I was helping organizations get rich. So I quickly ended that. I would have fired myself anyway. But ultimately, I went back and I said, how could I work with multiple organizations and make a difference? And I moved back to Denver with my family to work at a nonprofit here. And what I found is there were many, many people who were consultants who would tell you, this is what you have to do. They would create these amazing plans. And then they just like go off into the mountains or the sunset, and you couldn't do anything with these plans. They were not implementable. They weren't focused on budgets. They weren't focused on evaluation. They weren't focused on how you can make things real. So in 2006, at the tender age of 29, not having a clue what I was doing, I decided that I was going to start a business. Within 6 months, I had more business than I could handle, and I recruited someone to help me to run the business. That was my wife. I will tell you that was the most serious, difficult negotiation I've ever had. And as a result of that negotiation, she became CEO, she owns 51%, she got a new car. I mean, it goes on and on. But the thing is that we said, this is what we're going to do. We had 2 little kids at the time. They're now sophomore in college and a senior in high school. But we said, we're going to work together and we're going to make this world better. And we literally made our tagline, building better nonprofits for a better world. And the way that we decided to do that is many organizations want to work authentically in their communities. I'm not going to come in and tell you how you should work with a certain population. If I'm working with the LGBTQ+ community, I'm not going to tell them how they should work their population. What I'm going to do is I'm going to help them raise the money, give them the guidance and access to the resources, and then show them what are ways that they can evaluate themselves meaningfully and in a way that's going to help them get more funding. And so this model of helping organizations raise money and providing strategic planning services took off. So now fast forward, we're still working together, and the number of people that they have impacted with their services, we are now almost at 9 million lives that have been impacted. So why am I running for city council? I have a great business. I help start a lot of others. I actually am also teaching entrepreneurship in high school. Why? Everything seems great. The reality is that in the past 5 years, I've run into issues with the city, where the city has blocked many of the nonprofits from being included, especially ones who have evidence-based programs to address homelessness, to address affordable housing, to address public safety, to address even water issues. And yes, I have worked with ones related to conservation. So I'm running because I want everybody to have a fair shot at getting the help that they need. I'm happy to talk with you more. My name is Marty Zimmerman, and I look forward to our conversations after. Thank you.
Everyone. My name is Jeff Walker. Can you hear me in the back? Good. So my name is Jeff Walker. I'm a candidate for the City Council at large. I live in South Denver near Broadway and Evans, Rosedale neighborhoods there. I'm running for City Council because I love Denver, like everybody else up here. And I think finally I have enough experience where I can make a sizable, substantial contribution to it. I moved to Denver from Cincinnati in 1999 to go to law school. That didn't work out. I just found out I didn't want to be a lawyer, at least not for that. So I love the lawness, I love my books. So I have a background in planning. So I got a job at CDOT. And from there, I worked for a couple of engineering firms. I worked in an environmental firm, reading environmental documents and permitting for transmission lines, substations. From there, I moved on to Excel, where I've been for about almost 17 years next month. I buy property and do permitting for substations and transmission lines. So the real tall infrastructure that you see mostly along the highways, some of the major streets in Denver. I've served on Denver's planning board, served on the RTD board of directors from 2011 to 2020 when I was termed out. I've served on the bond issue subcommittees for transportation and infrastructure. I was a planning director for a small town in Ohio. I worked for the equivalent of Dr. Cog in Cincinnati, working on the transit study. So that's my background. That's my personality. Even though I ran twice before, nobody else was on the ticket. So it's just me. So I never really had to launch a campaign. If you look at my donations, you'll see I still don't run much of a campaign. But that's okay because I'm still up here on the same stage and they're having a great time. And I think I have a lot to offer, just like everybody else. So anyway, the reason I'm running is because I said, no, I think I have a lot to offer with all the experience I have. My most recent endeavor is working on the task force to reimagine police and public safety, which opened my eyes to a whole different world that I hadn't been exposed to before. I had only been stopped by police twice while walking down the street because I fit some kind of description. Now I'm some people I have friends a lot older than me who have never been stuck like this. But for me, some of my friends, that's a really low note because I was on my way after about 5 minutes. But that opened my eyes to this whole other world of how the police department operates, how it interacts with the public. So now after that, after a year of that, I said, you know what? Let me try this again at a larger scale and at a more substantial scale. So here I am. So what I think I offer is a wide variety of experience from living in Cincinnati, Ohio, Minneapolis, Cleveland, Columbus, Chicago, all as an adult, all on my own. Understanding how those cities, to some degree, understanding how those cities operate, being a renter in all of those cities. This is the first place I've owned a home when I was 35. I bought my first place. But having that experience, understanding the
30 seconds.
Okay. Understanding that, not coming in to shake up the system, but to listen and help the people who are affected by the system to get a better result from the system. That's how I approach RTD. That's what I do at my day job and several of my other jobs, gather information and find out what the best solution is based on the information I gathered and based on the comments that I received. Jeff Walker, candidate for city council at large, www.walkerfordenver.com. FORDenver.com. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. My name's Sarah Parody. I relate to 20% investor owned. And when we started making this shift towards the financialization of housing and really housing being a way that profit gets siphoned out of our city instead of a way that families build generational wealth. And it kind of haunts me that folks that lost their homes in those years, if they owned their homes in Denver today, they would be worth 2 or 3 times the value. They would be building that generational wealth and sitting on a gold mine. So those things are very real to me. And I will say also that that's when I kind of learned the pattern of our city because my clients were located mostly in certain neighborhoods outside of the inverted L for the most part. So then in the years since then, representing workers, I'm representing lots of people that have lost a job, sometimes because of discrimination or because they spoke up and blew the whistle about something. I particularly represent a lot of safety whistleblowers. That's a passion of mine. But a lot of folks have also lost their jobs because of a health crisis or because of a disability. And we have such a patchwork of laws in the bar, which is one of our largest bar groups in Denver. It has a long history of activism and policy work. The Employment Bar was also in leadership of the Colorado Bar Association, the Trial Lawyers Association. And most of those groups have lobbyists that are in the Capitol and sometimes in the city as well, advising policymakers about ramifications for the legal system in general. So I started to get more and more involved in particularly workplace legislation, but also legislation around a whole host of economic security issues, health, housing, those kinds of things.
30 seconds.
The 2019 Colorado Equal Pay for Equal Work Act was a bill that I drafted. That's why we now have salary ranges and job postings. So today my concern is that my 2 little kids are growing up in a city where I'm worried that they will not be able to serve as teachers or healthcare workers and afford housing. And I truly think that's a huge loss to all of us. I also think it's a moral outrage that we have people living on our streets, and that if we can't solve that problem, then you have no business being
as a Mile High resident. And I worked for Jared Polis, who's now our current governor, but at that time he was on the State Board of Education and landed in the Mile High City and knew I was home because of all those things that I just described. However, Denver is a much different place than where it is or where it was when I moved here. So how many people were born in Denver? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you are transplants in Denver? All right. So you know what I'm talking about here with respect to how we arrived, what we arrived to, why we came here, and what we hope to achieve. And so in the context of what I saw, Denver was on the rise. The economy was growing. Transplants, like all of us, many of us, were moving into the city. And we were going places, but it doesn't feel that way right now. Crime's on the rise right now. Affordable housing is out of reach for so many in the city. Homelessness is at crisis. This is the largest and oldest registered neighborhood organization and the only with a $1 million endowment and no longer facing financial insolvency. And so with that experience, it's helped inform me about what we need, the management, the public policy initiatives, the right leadership MAC, at this time. What's past is prologue. When you go back and you look at Denver's history 40 years ago, we were talking about an airport that needed completion, or what to do about that airport, rather. We were talking about crime, we were talking about homelessness, and we're having those same conversations today. So this is the most essential, this is the most consequential, election of the last 40 years. And we have to be able to address those crises right now with the right leaders. So, oh man, that 5 minutes went quickly. So I'm look forward to having a conversation with you tonight around my key issues, ranging from affordable housing and development to addressing homelessness, to promoting neighborhood safety, and to investing in core neighborhood services. And I think that this is going to be a really rich discussion. And with 3 weeks to go, I hope to count on your support. Travis Leiker at travisleiker.com. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Tim Hoffman. I am one of the many at-large candidates asking for your support tonight. I'm from Denver originally. I live in the Bonnie Brae, Corey Merrill neighborhood with my wife and 3 young daughters. I have a 4-year-old and twin 2-year-olds, so it's just the perfect time for me to run for office. In a lot of ways, this campaign for me started just over 3 years ago. I was biking home and I was hit by a pickup truck. Launched 10 feet in the air, landed on my head, and was left with a traumatic brain injury. Spent 6 months out of work and the better part of a year relearning how to do basic tasks like walk and talk. Anyone in this room who's gone through any sort of recovery knows that that path, that road is bumpy, and oftentimes the way forward is unclear. There are milestones that you achieve and there are setbacks that you have to endure. And in those low moments, it's your purpose for fighting that propels you forward. It's your reason why that keeps you going. And I think when I have gone to each of the 78 neighborhoods in Denver and spoken with my neighbors, there's a sense and a feeling that Denver's in one of those low moments as well, too. We all know the challenges that we're facing around crime and public safety, affordability and homelessness, transportation infrastructure, climate change, right? And these challenges are real. But I'm as optimistic today as I was when I first moved back here in 2016. Probably has a little something to do with the fact that I'm no longer living in my parents' basement. But look, there are over 700,000 people in the city right now. Most of the people in this room, as we saw with the show of hands, are transplanted. Everybody in this room tonight picked Denver as their home for a week. That's your lives. That's your purpose. And when you stitch together all of those reasons why across the 78 neighborhoods, across the over 700,000 people, you have a community who's willing to fight and do the hard work to build a better Denver for everybody. That's why I got into this race, to be a part of that fight. That's why I'm asking for your support for April 4th. In addition to being a father to my 3 young daughters, I've spent the last 5.5 years working as a prosecutor at the district attorney's office here in Denver. Most recently, I was a felony prosecutor handling sex assaults, homicides, motor vehicle thefts, other felonies. I was on the bias motivated task force prosecuting 8 crimes that we saw in the city. And I was on the traffic investigation unit responding to the scene of traffic fatalities. I spent too many nights out on Colfax responding to traffic fatalities. What also got me into this race was seeing every single day people coming into my field. Yes, had committed crimes, but it was in the context of addiction, mental illness, financial insecurity, and housing instability. These are often the root cause of a lot of the criminal behavior that we see in our city. And the reality is, by the time they're in a courtroom with me, it's oftentimes too late. There are rehabilitation programs that we have in Denver. There are diversion programs. All of those things should be bolstered, and we should continue to try to use those mechanisms. But by the time they've been in the courtroom with me, oftentimes someone's been incarcerated, someone else has been victimized. And my options as a prosecutor are relatively limited in terms of the treatment for against the crimes. So I got into this race to move upstream of the criminal justice system and proactively provide people some of the guardrails in our community 9 months before a crime ever happens. That's where city government should have the lion's share of its focus. Now, the question then becomes, Tim, that all sounds great. What does that look like in practice? Well, we know that skills is some of the most challenging problems facing the city right now. In 2016, Denver had a social impact bond program where we took approximately 285 people who were chronically experiencing homelessness and we moved them into supportive housing. So this wasn't just one of the congregate shelters with a bunch of bunk beds. This was an actual home. And then we provided them individualized wraparound services to deal with whatever ailments they were suffering from. And what we saw 3 years after that program was implemented, 78% of this population was still housed, led to a 40% reduction in arrests by this population, 40% reduction in emergency room visits. So when you solve for one of these problems, in this case, problem of homelessness, and you actually provide the shelter, but not just the shelter, the wraparound services, you're going to solve for these other problems as well. That's the type of program that then the question becomes, how do you scale it up?
Amazing children who attend Denver Public Schools. I am a third generation high school graduate, and I'll also pop in there. My family also has Manual High School graduates and East High School attendees, West High School attendees. And I'm also a current state representative. I represent House District 4 right here in Denver, in Northwest and West Denver, where I've been serving in the Colorado State Legislature for the last 4 years, and I'm in my 5th year right now. And I'm here tonight because I'm running to be your next Denver City Council member at large. When I think of Denver, I have so many stories that I can think of, but I really think of the experiences of me and my family. I think of my mother, who as a child, along with her family and many other Latino families, was displaced for the building of Auraria campus in Denver's West Side. I think of my father, who as a young man started his journey working for the city and county of Denver in Denver Parks and Rec as a pool manager at the Mestizo Curtis Park. He then went on to work for 27 years for the city and county of Denver in zoning and planning. And I have to say that I'm thankful for the work that they've done and the life they built for us where we grew up in North Denver. And I am grateful that I get to serve the community that I am actually from. I love it. And that's why I'm here tonight. I think about the legacy that my family has left in this city. And that has been a legacy of serving our community, of fighting for justice for the people of Denver. And I am thankful that I get to continue that tradition, not only in the work that I've done at the Capitol, but in over the last 20 years, I have continued to work, and I've worked with Denver's families and kids that are our most vulnerable population, that are multi-system involved. They're navigating difficult systems like the child welfare and juvenile justice system. And I've worked with them to help them access services like housing, food, and behavioral health care. And in the last 4 years, not only have I continued that work because I believe that it's important to always know what's happening in our communities. I've not only continued that work, but I've had the great opportunity to serve in the legislature where I've worked to break down structural barriers. I have passed over 60 pieces of legislation that I have been the prime sponsor of. Policies that have addressed the issues of affordable housing, building power for workers. We heard about the 2019 bill, Equal Pay for Equal Work. I was one of the prime sponsors of that bill. And I'm thankful for the work of Sarah Parody, who was a partner in that work. I continue to work for strengthening renter protections. As of right now, we just today actually passed on 3rd reading out of the House policy to continue to help renters. Because I agree that if we can keep people housed, that's one less family that is ending up homeless. A great opportunity to champion policies to address our affordable housing crisis by making investments of over $500 million in affordable housing through the American Rescue Act funds that came through the legislature. And that is trickling down to our local governments, as well as tackling those root causes of crime that we all sit here and talk about. I've actually had great experience and opportunity to work on those issues as well by making historic investments in our behavioral health care system. I was the vice chair of the Behavioral Health Task Force, where we've made, it was $500 million, again, trickling down to local nonprofits, community-based organizations, and local governments. This is the work. And I have been doing this work, not only at the Capitol, but I've been doing it in the community too. And that is what I'm ready to bring to our city. I'm ready to bring that passion and that experience, because I know, and what I've been hearing from you all, from people that I've been talking to on a regular basis, Denver deserves affordable housing. Denver deserves jobs that pay living wages. And we deserve leadership that's not afraid to tackle the root causes of crime instead of criminalizing the symptoms. I'm here tonight asking you for your vote, asking you for your support so that together we can make a better Denver. I love Denver. I don't know that we need a, I'm just incredibly proud to be a part of the city. Thank you tonight for joining us on this journey. I thank my colleagues here because they've been some great, what do we call ourselves, co-candidates? So thank you so much. Serena Gonzalez Gutierrez.
You for being here. Like Shannon, no matter how many times I do this, I'm still nervous, so bear with me. My name is Dominic Diaz. I'm running for Denver City Council at large. Like many others here, I was born and raised here in Denver. I lived all over the city, from Marston to Montello and everywhere in between. I'm also an East Angel, spent some time in City Park West, so I'm really happy to be back in this neighborhood. Thank you for having me. Over the last 10 years, I've served our city as a city employee. At the age of 13, I started working for President Barack Obama's second re-election campaign, worked out of the 5 Points office, and that's where I really developed my passion for rolling up my sleeves, getting on the ground and understanding what the residents of Denver really care about. I translated that experience to going into local government. That's where I felt I could have the most impact on the issues that I just talked about. At the age of 15, I started in Parks and Recreation, went on to serve as a clerk recorder's office as a Colorado election official. I oversaw campaign finance, regulated local lobbyists, and the city's financial disclosure process for elected and appointed officials. What I can tell you about that experience is follow the money. It usually tells a story. Today, I always wanted to run for office. I felt weird being an election official and running for office at the same time, so I decided to do some other work that was near and dear to my heart. Today, I serve for the Mayor's Office of Children's Affairs, going to bat for Denver kids. I oversee a multi-million-dollar budget for out-of-school time providers and youth violence prevention providers doing contract compliance. That's why I'm right here today. 10 years in city government, I understand how the city works. I understand how to get things done and build coalitions. You need 7 votes on city council to get something done, and I think that's something that's lost nowadays, is the art of compromise, the art of bringing people together, and that's what I can do. Here's my plan. Well, actually, let me tell you one more thing. Sorry. I was priced out of the city. I neglected to mention that I have 2 kiddos at home, and me and my wife Alexia live in Sun Valley, which is right by the Broncos Stadium. At the age of like 20, I couldn't afford to live in the city anymore, so I moved to Aurora. And the only reason why I'm able to live in the city today is because of affordable housing that was brought to the Sun Valley neighborhood. And that's inexcusable, honestly. The fact that I work for the city but can't afford to live in the very city that I serve. We need to fix that. One day I want to buy a house here, and with the average home price being around $600,000 on a public service salary, that is simply out of reach for me. That's not right. Okay, so here's my plan. Housing and affordability. We need to create opportunities for home ownership. We need to leverage partnerships with our financial institutions to create access to affordable credit for working class families. We also need to expand, of course, renters assistance programs. We need to keep people in their home. My grandma lives in this city, and I want to make sure that she can continue to remain in this city. Property tax is ballooning. We need property tax relief for our elders. We need expanded eligibility for that program. And of course, to spread the word, because not even, many folks don't even know that that exists. And that's what I can do. I have a unique understanding of the services that the city can offer and how to spread the word. We also need ADUs citywide. I think that that would be a good option for me. I would love to buy an ADU if that were available. We need to get serious about housing first. There's a whole list of vacant city-owned property. I don't know if anyone had a chance to watch the 9 News mayoral debate last night or a couple nights ago. I learned that a candidate actually has the same idea, and she used the very same list that I'm mentioning. And there's 60 parcels that candidate identified. We can use that list to create permanent and transitional supportive housing for folks living on the street. When I go down to work downtown and I see in blizzards people sleeping on the street, particularly children, it just does not sit right with my soul. As a city, we can do better, and we must do better. 30 seconds. So here's the second part about plan. We, of course, need to address public safety. I'm had the privilege of serving on the Mayor's Youth Commission, and I just heard powerful testimony from East High School students who tragically lost one of their classmates a couple weeks ago. We need to do better by our youth. We need to connect them to gainful employment, mentors, mental health services. As a union man, I would love to see apprenticeships being built into DPS. The Cherry Creek School District has an innovation facility where they're connecting youth to career pathways. I want to see something like that happen right here in Denver. Young people need hope. We need opportunity. I think we would rather pick up books, not guns. I mean, that's the bottom line. We need people to look after our youth. And I think as adults, neighbors, family members, it's incumbent on us to step up to that responsibility. Traffic safety too, getting around the city is not safe. It can be unnecessarily cumbersome. We need substantive infrastructure investments. I live in Sun Valley right off of Federal, and I can tell you that the roads broke. We need to fix our roads, we need to fix our bridges. And as council member, I'm prepared to put together a bond package to present to Denver voters to do exactly that. Make those investments. Thank you. Right off the top. Dominic, yes. Yes. DIAs. Yes. Okay.
Well, good evening. This is the last of 12 introductions, so let me get to it. My name is Penfield Tate. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. I'm here to ask for your support. I'm here to ask for the privilege to serve you once again, this time as your city council person at large. My website is Tate4FOR, citycouncilatlarge.com. I have 20-something nephew who told me that's too long, but it is what it is. Like many of you here, I did not grow up in Denver. I grew up in Boulder. My father was the first Black Boulder City Councilman and the first only Black mayor of Boulder. So I grew up around politics growing up. When I graduated from high school, I went to Fort Collins up at CSU, went back east to law school. When I came back to Colorado, I moved to Denver, Northeast Denver, and I have been here ever since for the last 42 years. First 4 years in 5 Points, and now in Park Hill, where I reside. I've had the privilege of representing you before. Many of you supported me when I was your state representative in House District 8, and I then had the opportunity to serve you as your state senator in Senate District 33, succeeding Gloria Tanner when she was term limited. In addition to that, when I served in the legislature, I served in the Joint Budget Committee. So I spent 2 years writing and managing the state's multi-billion-dollar budget. I know how to work with government budgets and large budgets. Dominance, right, where you put your money is where your priorities are. And I learned that serving in the legislature for you. I then served on Governor Romer's cabinet and ran a department of state government where I managed 550 people and another multi-million-dollar budget. And finally, I worked for a mayor who told us to imagine a great city. I worked in the office. Yeah, Federico Pena. And I'm running because as I walk this neighborhood in this city and I walk in Green Valley Ranch today, too many people tell us we're not a great city anymore.